That wasn't very loud and proud, but I heard you. Good, okay. Here's what it is. Judge not. Let's just say it together. Yeah, in other words, let's say it kind of formally. Do not judge, all right? Do not judge. That's what it is. Do not judge. That's what Jesus said. Now, let me kind of give you a definition, kind of tease this out. You can use this next time somebody judges you. Thou shalt not size me up and write me off. That's what it means to judge, right? Thou shalt not size me up and write me off, right? Thou shalt not look at me and come up with, have a bad attitude or hear something I say, see something I wear, find out who I've been with, see what's on my body. Thou shalt not size me up and write me off. Nobody wants to be judged. Nobody likes to hear about other people being judged. And so this is one of the most popular things Jesus said. Do not judge. In fact, maybe you didn't even know Jesus said it, but you knew it was in the Bible, right? How many times have you heard, but the Bible teaches do not judge? I couldn't find it if my life depended on it, but I know it's in there somewhere. So so today we're going to actually look at what Jesus said about judging. And he said, don't judge. Now here's the question to kind of get our heads into this topic. The question is this: why do you think religious people tend to be so judgmental? I mean, why do religious people tend to judge? And Christians judge. Christians can be judgmental. The ancient Jews in Jesus' time, they were extremely judgmental. When you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, some of the stuff they say and do, the way they treat people, you think, wow, who could do that? Muslims are judgmental. We're experiencing that in our culture and in the world today. Religious people, we just tend to go there pretty quick. I have been very judgmental. I was in counseling one time. That should encourage you. Back when I was in my 30s, I was going to see this counselor, and a great counselor can sneak up on you. I don't know if you've ever been to counseling. I don't want to ask you to raise your hand. Anyway, if you're a good counselor, because great counselors ask great questions, and boy, I'm telling you, my counselor's name was Steve. He snuck up on me one time, and he asked me a question, and before I stopped to really think about what I was going to say, I said something to him, and I'm telling you, I opened up my icky, judgmental heart. And I'll never forget that day, suddenly seeing how extremely self-righteous I had become. It was ugly. It was a defining moment in my life, how self-righteous I had become. And consequently, I just judged people and wrote people off so quickly. And I was a Christian. So I get this. This isn't foreign to me. But for some reason, us religious people, regardless of your religion, we get judgmental pretty quickly. And Jesus said, early on, right out of the chute, before the Bible's even written, he said, hey, do not judge. So why do we judge? Why do religious people, why are we so judgmental? I think there's probably a lot of reasons. I want to talk about two real quick. Then we're going to actually look at what Jesus said. I think we judge for a couple reasons. Number one, I think sometimes we judge because we're jealous. And I want to ask you to raise your hand. We judge because we're jealous because we see sinners having more fun than we are having. And we're mad. And we're mostly mad because they're enjoying sin and we're righteous and we don't like the fact that they seem to be getting by with something, right? Basically as a religious person, if I can't, you shouldn't be able to either. If I can't because my religion won't let me, you shouldn't be able to either. And if I see you doing what I can't do, I'm just kind of jealous that you're just having way too much fun, right? I have a friend named Craig Rochelle, and he says this. He says, if sin isn't fun, you're doing it wrong. If sin isn't fun, you're doing it wrong. And I think this is what happens to us sometimes as religious people. We see people enjoying their sin, and it looks like they're actually getting by with it. Their nose isn't growing, nothing. Everything's going great. In fact, the more sinful they are, it seems that the lives are better. And here we are trying to be religious and be good and obey God and enjoy, And we're not enjoying our Christianity. We're not enjoying our religion, but they're enjoying their life. So sometimes I think we're judgmental, honestly, because we're just jealous. Do you ever meet any Christians, and surely none of you fall into this category, have you ever met or talked to Christians who actually seem to be happy there's a hell? You ever meet Christians like this? It's like they're so happy there's a hell because they're not going, But they know some people who are, and that'll teach you to have so much fun. It's like they have a little bit too much joy about hell. I think, I don't really think you've thought this through, Back in 2010 or 2011, Rob Bell, who some of you remember, wrote a book. And in this book, he basically makes the argument that there might not be any hell. And he's looking for a way to kind of take hell out of the New Testament and argue that there's no hell. The book was Love Wins. Some of you might remember that book. But anyway, so when the book came out, because I'm a pastor, everybody's reading this book, and I read the book, and so everybody wanted to know, ask each other, what'd you think? And so many people kept asking me, did you read Rob Bell's book, and what did you think about what he said about hell? I came up with a standard answer that I just love to give people to bother them. So my standard answer was, when people said, did you read the book? What did you think about what he said about hell? I would say, I hope he's right. Don't you? Don't you hope there's not a hell? And they would look at me kind of like, you realize if you say, no, I really hope there is one, something is wrong with you, right? I mean, if you hope there's a hell, I mean, you're a judgmental person, right? So I remember I was talking to my dad, and my dad said, Andy said, oh, have you heard about this fella, this young fella who's written this book trying to make an argument that there's no hell? He said, do you know much about that? I said, yeah, I read the book. He said, what'd you think? I said, well, Dad, I hope he's right, don't you? Wait. And my dad looks at me for a minute like, first look is, you're a heretic, and then he smiled, he said, yeah, I guess we should all hope he's right. But there's some Christians, you just enjoy the fact that there's hell a little bit too much, And part of it is, you think people are getting by with their sin. You don't understand sin, but I think that's one reason we're so judgmental. I think the other reason, and this isn't so far akin from being jealous, the other reason is we're just self-righteous. Now, this is going to be a little harsh. Self-righteousness, and I've been there, okay, so I understand this. Self-righteousness is ignorant and it's arrogant. Self-righteousness is ignorant and arrogant. And here's what I mean by that. Because the self-righteous people compare themselves to others, but they keep God on a leash. It's like, sit, God. And then it's like, I'm so much better than her, and I would never do that, and I can't believe they do that, and I can't believe they believe that. Sit, God. I can't believe, they're so. And self-righteous people, it's so easy for them to judge other people. Meanwhile, they got God all tamed over here. So what they do, if you're self-righteous, let me kind of help you understand yourself. You dumb down God's holiness and you elevate your own. That's what self-righteous people do. They dumb down God's holiness so that they can kind of reach that goal, and then they elevate their own. That's why it's ignorant and it's arrogant. And consequently, the self-righteous are very rarely self-aware. Very rarely self-aware. So the point is, if you're religious at all, regardless of your religion, it lends itself to being judgmental. Now, that makes this a very, very important not. Judge not, judge not. But the other reason this is a very important not is because judge not is not all that Jesus said. Judge not was the beginning of a discussion, but unfortunately the only part of judge not people understand or remember or know is in the Bible is the do not judge. So what we're going to do with the rest of our time is we're going to look at what else Jesus said about judging, because this is a really important not. So here we go. He says, Matthew chapter 7, if you want to follow along or look it up later on your YouVersion Bible, or if you have something with you where you can look it up, you can follow along. Here's what Jesus said. He said, do not judge. There it is. Basically, thou shalt not criticize me, compare me to anyone or anything, or confront me about anything that I do. Isn't that what we basically mean by don't judge? That is, don't criticize me. It's none of your business. Don't compare me to someone else. Don't compare me to my older brother. Don't compare me to, the other guy you work for. Don't compare me to the person down the street. Don't compare me to her husband. Don't compare me to anyone, and don't confront me about any of my behavior, because ultimately it's none of your business. Do not judge, period. Except when Jesus said this, there wasn't a period. There was a comma. He said, do not judge. Now, you actually should like this part. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. So here's something you should do. Next time somebody judges you, instead of just saying, you shouldn't judge or you shouldn't be judgmental, here's something way better to say. Next time you feel judged, you should say, do not judge, or you too will be judged. Isn't that better? It kind of throws it back at him. Let's just say this together out loud, everybody, all of our campuses together, with a little bit of attitude. Ready? Do not judge, or... Now this time I want us to use our hands. Ready? All together, ready? Do not judge, or you too. See, there you go. See, that's better than you shouldn't. What this is saying is what Jesus said is this is coming back on you. And then he elaborates. He says this, check this out, for in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Literally, this means with what judgment you judge, you will be judged. And with what measure you use, that measure will be used against you. With what judgment you judge, you will be judged. And with what measure you measure, you will be measured. So next time somebody judges you, say, you better be careful, because it's going to come back on you. So basically, here's what Jesus has said so far. Let me just summarize it for us, okay? Judge unto others as you would have others judge unto you. That's what he's teaching. That you just judge unto others the way that you want to be judged, because when you judge, it's going to come back on you. You're going to be judged the way you judge, and the measure you use to judge other people, that same measure is going to come back to you. So essentially, the lesson is so far, judge unto others the way that you would have others judge unto you, which brings us to a really important question when it comes to judgment. If we are going to be judged the way we judge other people, or if the way that we judge others is going to come back on us, how do you want to be judged? How do you want to be judged? I'll answer first. I want to be judged not. I don't want to be judged at all. Do you want to be judged? No, we want to be judged not. But if you have to judge me, isn't this true for all of us? If you have to judge me, I want you to judge me mercifully. And let me explain what I mean. When you judge me, I want you to take into account the family I was raised in. I want you to take into account the way I've been treated by other people. I want you to take into account all of my insecurities that I have no control over. I want you to take into account my entire history. I want you to take into account the temptations I struggle with. And in my case, I want you to take into account my teeth, because I had really, really, really bad buck teeth growing up, and it's made me insecure about my smile, and I don't smile very well, okay? So when you judge me, if you're going to judge me, I want you to be merciful. I want you to take into account my entire story. Isn't that how you want to be judged? Before somebody, sizes you up and writes you off, it's like, wait a minute, that's not fair. If you're going to judge me, you need to take into account all of me, not just that one behavior, not just that one tattoo, not just that one bad hair day, not the fact that you saw me working over there, not the fact that you saw me with him. I mean, if you're going to judge me, take my whole life into account. He continues. He says this. He asks a question. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye? Now, this is the part we like, because this confirms what we suspected. There is something wrong with her. There is something wrong with him. So Jesus, it's okay to notice that. Have you seen her, look now, real quick, see that? Yeah. Ooh, I wonder what kind of girl she is. I don't know. What's going on with her? Did you see him? Look real quick. He's not looking. Okay. So it's okay to notice that sawdust. So there really is something wrong with these people. Okay. It's okay to notice, and it's okay to draw conclusions. And Jesus, I think what you're saying is it's okay to have opinions about other people. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust? So there is something in their eye, and we have noticed it. So we're good, right? He goes on. He says this. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye? You've heard this before. And pay no attention to the plank in your own eye. Now, this is a really easy question to answer. Two answers. The reason that I look at the speck of sawdust in your eye and I don't look at the plank in my eye, two answers. Number one, it's more fun to look at the sawdust in your eye because it distracts me from the plank in my own. In fact, your issues, the things that are messed up about you, make me feel better about me. The reason that I do this is because it's easier on me. It distracts me from the fact that I've got issues as well. So the reason that we notice what's wrong with other people rather than what's wrong with us is because it helps us feel better about us. That's the answer to this question. The other answer to this question is, honestly, Jesus, I didn't notice I had a plank in my eye. Now, I see the sawdust in her eye and his eye. I see what's wrong with you. It's easy, it's obvious to the rest of us what's wrong with you. But I'm not so sure there's anything really that bad wrong with me. And then Jesus, he's so brilliant. Then Jesus clarifies the not in the judge not. Now Jesus takes us right to the heart of the issue. This is why you judge not. This is all about the not in the judge not. So we ask the question, how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? This is the essence of the not and judge not. How dare you point out what's wrong with someone else when you have something wrong with you? And then he punctuates it with these two words that none of us want to hear. You hypocrite. Now, if you want to know what a hypocrite is, by Jesus' definition, this is it. It's somebody that is more fascinated by what's wrong with someone else than they are what's wrong with themselves. It's someone that's more interested and more preoccupied with fixing other people than fixing themselves. It's people who see what's wrong with everyone else but refuse to face up to what's wrong with themselves. And this is harsh, isn't it? It's harsh, but it's true. Because I have issues, and you have issues. And I should focus on my issues, and you should focus on yours. I should focus on my stuff, and I should let other people worry about their stuff. So maybe the lesson that Jesus is trying to get us to, maybe the moral of the story, maybe the thing that Jesus is trying to communicate in Judge Not is simply this: mind your own business. He could have just said that, right? The lesson for today is mind your own business. Lesson over. You let her deal with her stuff. You let her deal with her stuff because she knows her history and she knows her background and she knows her insecurities. And you just go look in the mirror and deal with your stuff. Everybody, mind your own business. Let's pray. But Jesus doesn't stop there. In fact, this is what's so amazing. This is where Jesus actually begins the lesson. Because not only does do not judge have a comma, when he gets to you hypocrite, there's no period. He continues. And listen to what he says next. You hypocrite, first. First sounds like he's about to give us a list. First, you hypocrite, how dare you try to deal with how dare you interfere in what's going on in another person's life before you first look in the mirror and deal with what's going on in your own life? You hypocrite, first, he says, take the plank out of your own eye and then you will see clearly. Oh, so now I think we know what he's saying. He's saying, here's how this works, see? When I see you and see how messed up you are, and then it reminds me to go figure out how messed up I am. So because of your sin, I go examine my sin and I deal with my sin, and consequently I'm better off. So basically, your messed upness helps me recognize my messed upness, and as I deal with my messed upness, I become a better person. So the fact that you're a mess helps me become less of a mess. That's a great lesson. So now he's done. So now let's summarize what Jesus has taught us about judge not. Here's what he's teaching. He's saying this: when I'm tempted to pass judgment upon thee, I should stop and check for the traces in me. That's what he's teaching, isn't it? That when I'm tempted to pass judgment on thee, oh man, did you see that? He said that again. Look what he wrote. Look what he said. Look what she tweeted. Did you see her Facebook page? I mean, did you see the pictures on her? I'm like, are you kidding me? It's crazy. When I'm tempted to pass judgment on thee, I should stop and say, wait, but Jesus said judge not, so I'm not going to judge. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the stuff on my page. I'm going to go back and look at the things I've said. I'm going to look at the way I dress. I'm going to look at what I said. I'm going to examine me, and consequently, I will become a better version of me because you are such a mess. Because your issues have helped me overcome my issues. But Jesus started a list. He said, you hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye. So if that's first, we have to ask the question, what's It's not a trick question. One more time. If he says that's first, then we have to ask the question, what's second? That's right. What's next? If the first thing is to take a plank out of my eye, I think that's where it should end. I take the plank out of my eye. Now I'm better off and I'm a better person because, as he says, now I can see clearly. But here's the thing. And here's the thing I hope you never forget, and here's the thing I hope I never forget. And if you're new to Christianity, here we're going right to the heart of what Christianity is all about. And if you know Christians that you don't get along with, or you've met some Christians that have made you not like Christians or not like church, what Jesus is about to say is the thing that perhaps they missed because it is so easy to miss. It's so easy to miss. Following Jesus never stops with what's in it for you, ever. Following Jesus never ends with what's in it for me. Following Jesus at the end of the day is all about leveraging what God has done in me and God has done for me for the sake of other people. Because at the epicenter of Jesus' teaching is love one another the way that I have loved you. So when I look at the mess in your life, and I decide I'm not going to write you off. Instead, I'm going to go look in the mirror so I can deal with the mess in my life. If I think for a minute that that's the end of the teaching, that's the end of the lesson, now I'm better off because of what I learned from seeing you mess your life up. That's not the end. Because that's not what following Jesus is all about. So, he says, you hypocrite. First, take the plank out of your own eye, then you will see clearly. And once again, there's no period. And then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. See, the problem with me minding my own business is that it does nothing for the person whose business needs minding. And the problem with you seeing something in me and it just simply motivating you to become a better person is that it does something for you, but it does nothing for me. And suddenly Jesus spins the whole thing around. Suddenly everything we thought he was going to say, and suddenly everything we've always leveraged about, do not judge, do not judge, do not judge. You have no right to judge me. You have no right to judge me. You have no right to judge me. Suddenly Jesus turns it inside out and says, wait a minute. That's not all there is to this. This isn't simply about leaving people alone. This isn't simply about minding your own business. And it's certainly not about becoming a better person based on all the issues you see in the people around you. This is about getting to a place where you are in a place where you can appropriately approach someone else about the stuff in their lives. To which we say, but wait. That's so judgmental. To which Jesus says, no, it's not. Jesus commands us, don't miss this is huge. Jesus commands us to address our stuff, but not for our sake. Jesus commands us to address our issues, to prepare us to help other people with their issues. He commands us to take the plank out of our own eye, not simply so that we won't have a plank in our eye, but so that we can see clearly, to address the sawdust in the eyes of other people around us. And that is not judgmental. That is obedience. And it takes us right back. It takes us right back to that new command that Jesus gave his disciples. It takes us right back to that night where he said, guys, if you forget everything else I teach you, if you forget everything else I said, if you lose track of everything that's going on, do not lose sight of this one thing, because this is right at the heart of everything I've taught and everything that I'm about. Love one another. And the problem is self-righteousness and jealousy. Self-righteousness and jealousy get in the way of love. But self-awareness paves the way to the kind of love that Jesus asked us to exhibit to one another. You see, this is important. Judge not does not equate to care not. Judge not does not equate to act act not. Judge not does not equate to react not. Judge not does not exhibit itself or portray itself as I'm going to mind my own business. Because love forbids me to size you up and write you off. Love forbids me to size you up and write you off, but love also forbids me from sizing you up and walking away. Love forbids me from simply minding my own business when I notice that perhaps your business needs minding. And that is not judgmental. That is love. That's not judgmental. From the standpoint of where we stand today, looking back over 2,000 years, that is simply obedience. So, let's summarize. What was Jesus actually teaching? And here it is. In fact, we'll just use his words. Take the plank. This is Jesus on judging. If you want to know what Jesus really teaches about judging, it doesn't end with, do not judge. Take the plank out of your eye in preparation for removing the speck from your brother's eye. Take the plank out of your eye, but it doesn't stop there. In preparation for removing the speck from your brother's eye. Do not judge, but do not stop there. Now, as I think about this and as I think about this passage, and it's just so fascinating and it's so rich and it's so deep and there's so much to it, I think it addresses three different audiences. And I would imagine in a crowd like this, as large as our churches are, and those of you who are watching online or from wherever you're viewing this content, I think there's so many of us that there's probably a lot of us that fall into one of these three audiences. In fact, truth be known, I imagine some of you fall into actually more than one of these three audiences. Audience number one that this applies to are those of you who size people up and write them off. You are, I hate to say this, you are self-righteous. You are. This is the thing Jesus despised the most. This is the thing that drove Jesus crazy. These are the parts of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John where you wonder if Jesus is even a Christian. I mean, he gets so emotional over self-righteous people. He just can't stand self-righteousness because self-righteous people, they dumb down the holiness of God and they jack up their own holiness artificially. And Jesus, who died for our sin, is like, how in the world can you do that? So if you fall in the category of someone who, like I was for so many years, you kind of lean toward self-righteousness, your tendency, because you know the Bible, you're religious, perhaps you're older, perhaps you kind of been there, done that, you've overcome all kinds of stuff and can't figure out why other people don't overcome it. You know, maybe your problem is you've never really done anything all that bad and you can't understand why other people continue to do bad things. The thing that you should do in response to what Jesus just taught us, it's a little two-syllable word that you think applies to other people, and perhaps you've never applied it to yourself, is you should repent of the sin of self-righteousness. Because it drove, and I imagine it still drives Jesus crazy. Let me say it this way. If the sin of others doesn't break your heart, it's probably because your heart has never been broken over your own sin. That is, when you see stuff about other people that's sinful, if your initial reaction, if your initial emotion is judgment, it's because you have probably never come face to face with your own sinfulness. Because if sin broke your Savior's heart, sin should break his followers' hearts as well. And you need to repent. Aren't you glad you came to church for this, right? The second audience, okay, that's just the first audience, okay? The second audience is you'd have a tendency to size people up and walk away. That you see people with issues and problems and you say, there, except for the grace of God, there go I. You know, that could have been me. God, I am so sorry. God, that breaks my heart. That young lady, what I see him doing, that guy at work, my neighbor, my friend, you know, my son-in-law. God, it just breaks my heart. I just want to lift them up to you and pray that you'll do something and change them. And it just reminds me, God, it just reminds me of your grace in my life and your forgiveness in my life. It just reminds me of how much better off I am because of you. I'm so grateful. But I'm not going to go talk to him. It's none of my business. Jesus teaches, it is your business. Confronting people about their stuff is not insensitive. Don't miss this. Confronting people about their issues is not insensitive. It is what love requires of you. And after all, like that old song says, you can see clearly now. The plank is gone. Right? I mean, that's the thing. God has done something in your heart, and you can just sing it if you want to, if you just feel like it's got to break. Right. This is the thing. God has done something in your heart, in your life. You can see clearly. You can see what sin is doing to her. And you can see what that habit is doing to him. And you can see what his activity is doing to his family. You can see it. You've been there. Perhaps you've even done that. You can see clearly now. But you don't see clearly for your sake. Jesus says you see clearly.
Chẳng được quên khi cơn mưa đêm lại về. Em đã quên lời thề và ta như đông chìm sâu. Không còn mơ em anh nhận màu. Em chỉ cần mơ đâu em bay. Chỉ còn là những cơn mưa vô giá. Cho bên mưa em không mơ anh. Anh một đêm mơ. Chỉ cần bên em không được cơn nhớ. Và trôi không còn nhớ. Và người ta bên nhau như ngã tơ. Muốn nhớ về say em chỉ còn với em ở đây. Và anh như muốn chết đi nhưng không muốn em mãi mãi. Tình yêu làm cho ta đau đầu. Không em như làm hâm mộ. Anh như đang mong cầu. Và mưa bên em hôn sầu. Chào các bạn mai em mơ. Chỉ có bên em nhưng đừng có mơ. Mà đã dài em muốn bên ai. Anh không mong gì hơn. Chỉ mong em sẽ ở đây ôm anh thật gần. Anh chỉ mong đôi ta được có nhau. Mà đừng em đâu anh có em. Một đêm bên ai đừng có em. Ta sẽ trao nhau môi hôn thật sâu. Ôm anh.
Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Fuck me, I'm looking in the mirror. So foggy, but I've never seen clearer. I don't really think anyone can save me. And honestly, I'm not really sure I want saving. I like to be my own worst enemy. There's no risk if you don't try at anything. So I'ma just keep buying everything. See you in the next life, have to be a better me. I don't think that my head's on straight. Gotta flip it and grip it and go and get an x-ray. What's wrong with me? I just feel weight pushing on my chest and it squeezes till I suffocate. Better change my mindset, meditate. It's pretty cool that I'm alive and have better days. I could walk, see, hear, I should celebrate. Think I could change my mind, maybe elevate. Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Yeah, all I need are some better days. Cause all I want, and I pray, rock in a hard place. Do I work hard or live at my pace? You're only young once, yeah that's all great, but I also want a future where I'm okay. Living life is doing lots of cocaine. Wait no, it's living with no shame. Wait no, it's sleeping in on Sundays. I guess it's different for each of us and that's okay. Well I just wanna be happy. How to get there? Glad that you asked me. I think it's different for everyone. Some of us need work, others need fun. Some of us need purpose to overcome. But try to do what you love when it's said and done, cause there's so many differences in each of us. Trust your gut, it can show you what you want. Living life, everyday, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. has determined your fate. I've never seen so clear. I feel the end and it's near. The day of reckoning's here. The sound of deafening fear. You don't die if you try. You just might get a little bit of trouble. K-N-I-F-E, right in your side. You will never see me coming. You don't die if you try. You just might get a little bit of trouble. K-N-I-F-E, right in your side. You will never see me coming. My energy is next level, so damn you better be careful. I got an angel and devil, he snaps me straight in the temple. I'm ready to be a rebel, I've got a lot of potential hidden inside of this vessel. That shit is so exponential. I need a first class ticket to the top, no limit. I don't play no gimmicks, I'ma take you to the clinic. If you want a taste, come at me and you will be replaced. They won't find a trace of you anywhere